Welcome to The Home Show, where we discuss all things Home Magazine on WLNI. Looking for design inspiration, delicious fare, home improvement tips, or hospitality ideas? All from local experts? You've come to the right place. The Home Show is presented by Piedmont Floor Show. Take your next step with them. Find them online at PiedmontFloorShow.com. Now, make yourself at home. Here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome to The Home Show. I'm Trish Roth, publisher of Home Magazine, joined with Rich Roth and Ashley Scammerhorn, our producer. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. If this is your first time listening to The Home Show, this show is all about Home Magazine, and Home centers itself around everything related to the home, whether it be design tips, improvements, gardening, and how we live in our homes. And we are currently in our summer issue, and we have been just really enjoying just kind of diving into that a little bit here on the show. And we're coming up on 4th of July next weekend.
We are. I mean, that came up quick. I feel like 2025 just started. Now it's like 90 degrees outside half the time. There's thunderstorms already. It's so humid out. And now the 4th of July is upon us.
I feel like this year is really flying.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Sometimes it seems like there's like a slow start to a year, and then all of a sudden we're in July.
Yeah, January was like 3 months long, and then every other month since then has been like entirely a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like 90 days away from fall, so that's my favorite season. But anyway, any plans for the 4th of July?
I think we are having a little gathering at the house.
Nice.
Much to my chagrin, but we're going to do it anyway because we need to. It's time. We need to socialize. It's good. It's good for you to socialize.
Yes. I don't think we're boring. We don't really do much. We may have I don't know.
You know,
we've had a busy like early summer season.
I was gonna say. I mean, this weekend was like our first down weekend in a long time, and it was really, really nice.
It was.
You two are very ambitious people, so to me it's never surprising. Oh, we have a thing tonight. We've got this. A lot of it's kids stuff, of course, you know, things you've got to go to for your kids and taking care of the pets. I'm like, you guys are go. I'm like, I can't. I need a nap just listening to you guys talk. Even in your downtime, she's like, oh, I took the weekend off. I just made like 17 different dishes. I painted on this whole giant canvas, this mural in the basement. That's Trish being not productive.
No, and the worst part of it is when she's up at 5 a.m. and she expects other people to be as motivated early in the morning as she is. How can you just sit there and drink coffee?
That's what I like to do. I'm very much a night owl. Yeah, let me drink my coffee and wake up.
It is really frustrating being a morning person and being married to somebody who is not a morning person, because I am like so productive in the morning. That is like my time to shine. 9 o'clock, I'm done.
Night owls are proven to be the exact opposite, where they're more productive at, toward the latter part of their day, they're more productive. Mm-hmm. That can be. I know I am also living with somebody who is a morning person and I am a night person.
Yeah. Well, we have a great show lined up for you today. We will be joined in studio by Dan Taylor with Kids Services, and we have home writer Becky Calvert joining us, and she's going to talk about popsicles, which is like the perfect, summer treat this time of year when we're all just dying of the sweltering heat.
I'm fanning myself right now. I need a popsicle.
Yeah. So we are going to take a quick break here, and we're going to jump right back in with Dan. But before we do that, we'd love for you to listen to Your Next Step with Bree Woodard of Piedmont Floor Show.
It's time to figure out what your next step is on The Home Show, presented by Piedmont Floor Show.
We're speaking with Bree Woodard, a design consultant with Piedmont Floor Show. Bree, what do you see people using as inspiration in their remodeling projects?
Well, pictures are always probably the first thing. They show you their Pinterest board or their Instagram board or a designer that they're following on social media platforms. But we also have people bring in things that are a certain pattern, so like a China pattern of some sort, or I've even had people bring in coasters or tea towels or some sort of a painting or some sort of an art piece that inspires their design taste and what they want to accomplish.
I bet that's a fun challenge for you, trying to incorporate that piece into an overall room.
It is. I love that because it gives me sort of a little bit of a path, but then it also gives me some creative license to show some things that maybe coordinate really well with what they have, or show them something that they really didn't even think of that still goes with what they have. So it's best of both worlds for me.
Take your next step with Piedmont Floor Show. Find them online at PiedmontFloorShow.com or on Facebook at Piedmont Floor Show. It's time to get our house in order. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Home Show on WLNI, presented by Piedmont Floor Show. Now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to The Home Show. If you missed any part of our show, you can find us on WLNI.com or anywhere where you listen to podcasts, or follow us on social media at WLNIradio.com. And we're joined now in studio by a home friend, a WLNI friend, Dan Taylor with Kids Restoration and Cleaning Services. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Good to have you back. It's always fun and interesting hearing from you.
All right.
And I'm sure today will be no different.
I agree.
Always a good story or two.
I know,
right?
I know. But first, Ashley has this for our first question for you is, before we talk about anything else, we need an update on your robot.
We haven't officially named it yet. I've got to have a little contest for that, but he's doing well. People seem to like it, and it's doing what we ask it to do, and we figured out how to operate it from our iPhone, so it's been pretty cool.
Very nice. And remind everybody again what he does, or she.
He scrubs tile floors, puts water down, scrubs the tile floors, and picks the dirt back up into its tank. And then when it's full, it will actually it'll go to the closet, and then we have to push a couple buttons. It'll let us know that it's full, and then we'll empty the thing out, and then it'll set it on its path again. And it's kind of cool because if you're walking down the hallway and it's coming towards you, it will know somebody's coming, and it'll stop. It'll move out of the way, and then once that person's clear, then it'll start picking. It'll go right back to where it was and pick up the spot. And if it misses something because 2 or 3 people are standing there talking and for a period of time, it'll actually go do everything else, and then it'll know to come back to that spot that it missed.
Okay.
Very interesting. It's the world we live in. It's AI driven. I mean, that's just where we're going with everything.
Right. That is true. And this is used primarily for commercial.
Yeah.
Commercial.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about 20 times bigger than a Roomba.
Okay.
And you actually sent me a video, which I'm forwarding to Ashley. So that is something that people could check out on our social media, Home Magazine VA, and check out the robot that Dan's talked about. That it's a he. I mean, a she.
He said it was a he.
I know. But
I said
heard
he.
the description, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
I'm not going to identify it. I'm just going to say the robot.
I guess once you determine its name, then we will know the
We'll
answer.
know what category to go to.
Yes.
It'll be like a Pat. Right?
Yeah.
The old Saturday Night Live skit. Name could go either way.
Yep.
And you can put a cute little graphic on it. So it's been a while since we've shared some of your kids' tips. Talk about ways to clean up different types of stains or messes. First one, Ashley is a new homeowner, and she has a new pet.
Well,
Yeah, just this morning, I let my screaming dog out of the crate take 2 seconds to fill up his water. Didn't immediately take him outside. He peed all over the living room carpet. What do I do, Dan?
the simplest thing to do, other than calling a company that does clean carpet, but the simplest thing to always do is water is the number one best cleaner in that you'll ever meet. I mean, that's what we shower in. That's what we do laundry with. But the simplest formula is take a little Dawn dish detergent, put it in a little jar or bowl, and then mix the rest with water and take a white cloth and just dab at the spot. And then when you're done doing that, take another white dry cloth, put it down and let it absorb back up into the towel, and you'll get 90% of it out. And the Dawn is really a very efficient cleaner. It's a neutral cleaner, which means it's not going to affect the fibers in any way. So it's not like you can put too much in there. But you don't really need a lot. If you had a bowl, say it's a bowl of cereal of water, and you put about 3 drops in there, it's probably enough to do what you need to do.
Wow, that's not very much. Yeah. Interesting. And does that also work with pet urine and just pet stains like that? Or do you need something to neutralize the enzymes there?
It'll work on the pet urine. The thing that's going to create the smell, of course, is the enzymes. So you could go to, there are products that you can buy in the grocery store that fight pet odors. We use enzyme-based cleaners. We also use it from a company called Odorcide that provides, not only do they have ones that's specifically for dogs, they have one for cats. Now they have one for skunks. I'm not 100% sure or convinced that they just don't change the label, but they all work. So, I often wonder, so this goes in the cat bottle and this goes in the dog bottle. What's the real difference? But they are effective, and I think when you got to kill the enzymes that are creating that odor to really get it out. I mean, if you just used Dawn and water, it's probably still going to leave a little bit of odor. And then in some cases, it's to try to kill that odor or neutralize it, just go to the grocery store and get some aerosol Lysol.
Okay.
Spray it down.
So I had a rug, and I probably should have brought it to you before I threw it away. But I tried one of those enzyme, and it did not neutralize it. Should they bring it to you anyway? Like if you do it yourself at home, like are your products stronger? Do you have a better chance of getting those smells out if you can't do it on your own?
The biggest challenge that a homeowner would have, or even somebody that rents one of these portable carpet cleaners from the grocery store or whatever, the biggest factor in not being able to get the stain out is not being able to get the chemical back out of there, along with the suction that we have on our truck mount is probably, compared to one of those things in the grocery store that you rent. I can't even remember the name of them, but
Rug Doctor.
Yeah, rug. I mean, not bashing them, but they just don't have the horsepower to get it out. The trucks that we use now, we use hot water extraction. It used to be back in the day that your carpet would stay wet for 6, 8, 12 hours, sometimes worse if it was in a basement after we cleaned it. But about 5 years ago, we went to this new technique, and it really, we get about 98% of the moisture out of there. So it dries in just a couple of hours.
Okay.
But that's key to getting the pet urine smell out of there, is get it out of there with suction that will allow you to get all the water and the chemical that you put down.
Couple things. First, it's great to know about those, animal-specific products, especially now the new one you mentioned for all those people who have pet skunks and they don't want them making a mess in the house. Did you hear him say that just a second ago? That just went right over your head.
It went over my head.
He said they have one for cats, they have one for dogs, and now they have one for skunks.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, who has a pet skunk? But they get into stuff.
Yeah, they get into stuff, and we've had a couple times where they've gotten into somebody's house and decided they weren't too happy, and they wanted to make that. They wanted to establish their presence.
Oh, that would be horrible. Our art director has had a little issue with a resident skunk at her place.
Not inside.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Oh.
And Ashley talked about, the dog peeing in the house. And I mean, those things will happen. But when you have a new dog or a puppy or something along those lines, at some point, there comes a point, right, where you don't bother doing it yourself. At some point, it's call Dan, call kids, have them come out, because it's happened enough times and especially when you think, okay, they're over it. Right. I mean, we think we're past that. Now, come on out, Dan, take care of it. And people can either drop their rugs off if they're area rugs, or you'll come out and clean them. Is one thing better than the other?
For area rugs, we really can do a better job if we take them to our shop, clean them, wash them properly, and then hang them up. We have a drying room, and that kind of will speed up the drying process. As far as I would not clean the area rug in somebody's house unless they absolutely said, I don't want that rug to leave here. Because it does take those area rugs a little bit longer to dry sometimes in somebody's house. But wall-to-wall carpeting, we do that all day long. And so, but the area rugs, I would encourage people to either bring them by our office or we can come pick them up. We had somebody come in today and brought 3 giant rugs in, and I said, we always ask them, do you know what these stains are? And I said, well, I went out of town on vacation, and my dog watcher didn't do a too good job watching the dog.
No.
So this is what it is. I said, okay.
Just one of those unexpected expenses that go along with a vacation. I got to ask, you told us the story a few years ago. There was a judge. He just
Judge Samuel Johnson. He would come by in his big Lincoln, and he'd roll down the window, and he'd look in there, and he'd see one of us standing there, and say, "Hey," and then he'd just take the rug and throw it out his window and just drive on up the road. He was a character. He actually wrote a book. It was pretty interesting. I think it was called something about Stories from the Robe or something like that. And he was an interesting guy. I really liked him. But we have a lot of people. Sometimes we'll have people. They'll call me at 4:30 at night when we're getting ready to close, and they say, "Hey, how late are you open?" So we'll end up staying down there. And so if people, want us to wait around for them, you can't get there till 5:30, just let us know. We'll wait and try to accommodate everybody.
What's your typical turnaround time from drop off to pick up for rug cleanings?
We used to tell people 2 weeks, and we still do, but we can do them. We can get them back to you in 5 days if we had to. If we put a priority on it, we can speed up the process just by, for some. Typically, what we do is we wait till we have a pile of rugs, and we'll clean them all day long. But if somebody says, "Hey, I need this next Thursday. I got a big dinner party coming up," then we'll just we'll do it. We'll make it work.
Great. We're talking with Dan Taylor with Kids Restoration and Cleaning Services, and kind of switching gears here to another side of your business. Let's talk a little bit about your restoration services. And one thing that we wanted to mention is that you are certified for mold remediation. Why is that so important?
Well, back in July of 2024, Virginia became one of the few states that enacted. It's called House Bill 1270, and it's done for the tenants on to help make sure that the places that they live are somewhat acceptable. This law said that it makes it a violation of Virginia Consumer Protection Act to sell or offer for sale services as a professional mold remediator to be performed upon any residential dwelling without holding a mold remediation certification from the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration certification. And I think part of the reason for this bill, I think there was two parts of it. One, it's trying to make landlords accountable. We get a lot of calls from tenants who say, "Okay, I've really got this mold problem," but the landlord, kind of doesn't really want to acknowledge that. This law also has there's some other provisions that go along beside this that kind of make landlords try to be more accountable for what conditions they put people in. And the other side of that a lot of people don't realize, I've been doing this for 34 years, so I'm not scared to say this. There's a lot of people that, quote unquote, have a guy that can do this and that and claims he can get rid of things that he's not qualified to do. I think part of the reason they did this is so that it's just as important to get the mold but it's also very important to protect our workers. The people that work in that industry. It can be very debilitating if you go into a place that has a serious mold problem and you just say, go in there and just get some bleach and just wipe it all down. And, you don't need a respirator or anything like that. Well, it only takes one time for that not to be the case. Mm-hmm. And there's tons of cases where people have not protected their workers, and they end up, people would get sick or they would have health consequences. And so that's the other hard part of the bill that I think they're trying to make sure that people are not sending people in harm's way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and mold can be, as you alluded to just a second ago, it can be a dangerous thing to have, well, just period, but certainly in your house. And if it's in your walls or in places you can't see it or you don't know it's there, or even if you do, it's important to get it out. And there are so many different types of molds. Some are more dangerous than others. It really makes sense to have an expert like Dan and the folks at Kids to come out rather than some guy, right? Like you were just talking about. I got a guy, he'll take care of it. Is he really going to take care of it?
Right.
Or is he just going to make it, wipe it off?
Correct.
But it may not really be gone. And then, you think you're good, but the damage keeps coming.
Yeah, and I think, it's not a scare tactic by any means, but I think it's important that the tenants, who a lot of times get probably ignored in some situations, that they just document everything because there is this house bill. So at some point, if you feel that you want to stay there, but you feel that it's not, there's a lot of mold involved, just send the letters to your landlord and document it, take pictures, because eventually they really have to take care of it. That's their responsibility to take care of it. And I grew up. My dad had a lot of apartments growing up, and I get it, man. That you don't want to put out money that you don't have to put out. So sometimes you got to push a little bit to make somebody do the right thing.
Right. Well, it can just be so debilitating.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I would hope landlords are taking care of those issues, just because it can really affect your family and just make your family very sick if it's not.
Well, it's great that you would hope that. But the reality, Dan, as we know, with some landlords, it goes the other way.
Oh, yeah.
You got to look out
There's
for
no
yourself.
question.
Can't count on somebody else to do it.
And I guess, you could do it yourself, but then you may be out the money versus your landlord.
Yeah, you could certainly do it yourself. The internet is great for some things. It's not so great for some things. But if you can figure out probably a method for doing it.
Well, I think what Trish meant was they could hire you, right, without going through the landlord, rather than trying to do it themselves. But
that's a touchy situation because a tenant doesn't technically have the ability or the money sometimes, but more importantly, it's not their property.
Right.
So there's a fine line there.
Yeah, that would make it really touchy because you can't be living in danger, and if your landlord won't do something, what does someone do in that instance, Dan? Is there an agency they call or
well, truthfully,
attorney?
You can go down a long battle, but if you're in a situation where you feel like, hey, this is just not good for me, healthy,
Move.
Ultimate thing is move.
Yeah.
Find another place. They're building apartments every day here in Lynchburg.
Yeah, you got that right.
There's no point in making yourself suffer through something. In today's world, to your point, allergies are more common than they've ever been. And so, an allergy, you're reacting to the environment that you're in, which is the same thing as if you're in a bad situation inside your house.
We've had a lot of rain recently. We've needed it. But sometimes when it comes fast and furious, that can cause issues inside the home and could be water damage. You guys, as kids, handle that, obviously. Could cause mold issues. Another thing, this is something to monitor.
Yeah, I think what we've seen with these really aggressive rainstorms where they have 5 inches of rain in 5 hours, our houses are not typically equipped to handle that kind of thing. And I think one of the maintenance things that people should keep an eye on is their gutters on their house. Keep them cleaned out, because what happens is those things get gunked up and then it goes down into the drain or where your drain tile is off your downspout, and it gets clogged up. Well, eventually, if it rains, that much in 5 or 6 hours or even 24 hours, eventually that water is going to have to find a place to go. If it can't go through the downspout, it's going to have to find somewhere to go. And a lot of times it'll end up, penetrating the basement wall or something like that. And a lot of times people don't even realize, like, for example, it's just me and my wife at home now. I probably need to go to the basement more often just to check things out, because a lot of times you get comfortable just like, okay, it's just us or just on the main floor. Take a walk around in your basement sometimes, especially after these hard rains, because water will, if it finds a way in one time, it'll keep finding its way in.
That's good advice. And I think, it's probably good practice to have your gutters, if you don't have screens or gutter guards, a couple times a year, both spring and fall.
Absolutely.
So very good. Well, in the last minute or so we have here, Dan, how do people learn more about kids services?
You can go to our website, which is www. I'm not even sure why people still say www, because they're all www.
It's just us old folks, Dan.
Okay, I got it. Kidsservices.com. It's KIDDSSERVICES.com. And we've got a pretty good website that we work on constantly. It's like everybody who's trying to operate a business today, but you can see our story there. You can call me or stop by the office.
And you answer the phone. A person answers the phone at Kids Services. That's wonderful.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's, you guys do a bunch of things. We haven't touched on fire damage, but you do that. restoration, remediation, right? The mold we talked about, rugs. I mean, all water damage.
One of the things that we
floods.
started doing about 5 years ago was asbestos remediation, and but we try to be fair and honest with people. I had a guy call me. I actually answered this call, and this guy said, "I bought this house out in Nelson County." He said, "I had a report done, and it said it had asbestos, likely had asbestos glue in the bathroom under the linoleum." And I was talking to the guy. I said, "Well, are you gonna?" He said, "I want to get a price for tearing that up." And I said, "Well, listen, if you're not disturbing that floor, and are you going to put a new floor on top of it?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "Are you just going to do a LVP plank or something like that?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, don't disturb it. Just encapsulate it. You put the new floor on top of it. Asbestos is not going to hurt you unless it gets ground up and airborne. He's just going to leave it there and put his new floor on top of it. He'll never have to worry about it."
So now we'd have 2 layers on top of it, and the chance of it getting ground up or anything like that is negligible.
Yeah, 0, unless he has water damage and has to tear the floor up. Then it might be a different story. But
Well, then you get rid of it.
yeah, exactly. There you go. So no, it's just try to help people out and make common sense, affordable solutions, and that's kind of what strive ourselves on, trying to be fair and charge a fair amount and be good to people.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of experience too, which I think is a comfort to a lot of people who are in scary situations. You have things go wrong with your home, and it's good to know that you can go to you all just to get that recommendation and get things taken care of and take the worry away. So, Dan Taylor, Kids Restoration and Cleaning Services, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more of The Home Show in just a minute.
We'll be right back. In the meantime, check out our latest issue of Home Magazine. Visit homemagazineva.com. You're listening to The Home Show on WLNI, presented by Piedmont Floor Show. Grab your free copy of Home Magazine at a location near you. Learn more at homemagazineva.com.
Welcome back to The Home Show. I'm Trish, publisher of Home Magazine, and we hope that you are having a wonderful weekend. And with the heat that we've been having here for the last couple of weeks, I can think of one thing that is so refreshing this time of year, and it is popsicles. Would you both agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I could use one right now. I'm hot.
You can never go wrong with a popsicle.
No. And we have our food writer, Becky Calvert, here with us, and she wrote a wonderful article all about popsicles. Welcome, Becky.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. You actually wrote 2 articles in the summer issue, and we will be covering peaches here in the next week or 2 or 3. We don't quite know yet, but we are so thankful to have you on. And we, reached out to you just to talk about popsicles, and you gladly took on the assignment. And I think you just did a fabulous job with it and provided us with just lots of different options. So one thing I was not expecting was to hear the whole history of the popsicle. And I would love for you to share with everybody about the history of popsicles.
Wait, there's a history to popsicles?
Yes.
Wow. Give it to us, Becky.
Well, yeah. Everything has to start out somewhere, right?
Yes.
Popsicles didn't just create themselves out of a vacuum, although they kind of did. So a then 11-year-old Frank Epperson, he lived in San Francisco, and apparently in 1905 he left his drink with a stirring stick out on the porch one night, and when he found it the next morning, it was frozen with the stick acting as sort of a handle. And it wasn't until 1923, like almost 20 years later, that he realized that no one else had come up with this idea and marketed it. So he patented frozen ice on a stick, which is what popsicles were originally called. And he called it Epsicles after his last name. But his children, because they looked like icicles, his children referred to them as popsicles, and that evolved into the name we know them as today. popsicle.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
Yeah, when they first debuted, they were a nickel, and then during the Great Depression, they came up with the 2-stick popsicle that still cost a nickel, so you could share your popsicle with a friend.
I remember having those as kids, and I wasn't really good about sharing the other side of my popsicle.
Yeah, I always say, I was reading about the Great Depression, people share. I'm like, share what? The whole thing is mine, both sides, as a kid and an adult.
Trish still isn't good about sharing.
And my favorite flavor was the orange one. I love the orange ones.
Right? Can I have a sip of your drink, Trish?
No.
No.
No, I don't share my drinks.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't share anything that I could share germs.
I know. That's how I feel. It's like, get your own. We go on road trips. I forgot my water. Can I have a sip of yours? No, because then I won't have any when I need it. So anyway, I think it's interesting, too, that in San Francisco, he was at a time, I didn't realize that things froze in San Francisco. So that was kind of interesting, too, like, for it to be frozen over. So,
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
yeah. So how does someone go about getting started making their own popsicles?
Really, you'd need like some sort of container and then some sort of stick. So you can use a paper cup, you can use, popsicle mold, you can use red Solo cups. Anything really, and then a stick that you can put in the freezer. And when you pull it out, kind of run it under some warm water. And actually, some of the things I've read about, like what you could use for a stick, like a toothpick, a straw, even like a spoon, just stick a spoon in there.
Nice.
And then put it in the freezer. Yeah, get creative. Like, there are no rules.
And I would think the bigger the cup, like you're talking about a red Solo cup, that's a pretty big popsicle. You would probably need a spoon or something. You ain't putting a toothpick in there and pulling out a Solo cup size drink.
No, it's probably more of an ice cube.
Popsicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I would think that if you used a red Solo cup as your popsicle mold, you would end up wearing a lot of that popsicle.
Mm-hmm. When we decided on doing this article, I purchased a mold because I knew that there was a bunch that we were going to make, and it's just kind of a silicone one, and it came as a kit. So it had the sticks in it, it had the cover, and it worked really well. And like you said, you just kind of run the warm water underneath it, and they just kind of pull right out. So, and it was, you can pick them up anywhere around town. They're pretty easy to find, especially this time of year. So, and I know we concentrated, we presented a bunch of different ideas and different, anywhere from juices to fruits, yogurt pops. There were so many different options. So how did you go about choosing what you wanted to present and show everyone?
So probably like a solid 15 years ago, maybe even longer, my child spent a couple summers deep into, I'm going to make my own popsicles all summer long, which was fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, a lot of the popsicles that I have that I put in this article were ones that she sort of developed or we developed over the course of summers. At one point, I think I had like 4 different silicone molds. Like every time we'd we'd be at the dollar store and she'd see it and be like, oh, I need that one. I have star-shaped ones. I have square. I have like the rounded, like we had a lot of popsicles.
Yeah.
And we would make them out of juice. We would puree fruits. We tried it with yogurt. So really, yeah, a lot of this, and I did do a little Google searching and kind of read a couple articles. There's a lot of sort of gourmet kind of popsicles out there that when people write about making your own popsicles, they take it to like these super fancy levels where you put ginger or turmeric in them. And,
right.
For me, I'm still kind of a kid at heart, and I like to keep it basic. So puree fruit, throw it in a mold, call it a day. Fruit juice, I'm still a fan. When I was a kid, we would make Kool-Aid popsicles, and I still love them.
Yeah, and we we took like one from each category that you gave us. And for the juices, I did just straight up grape juice. And those for like surprisingly took the longest to freeze. You know, I went down to check on them after 6-7 hours and it still wasn't quite ready yet. So that would be like a piece of advice for me if you're going to make just a fruit juice lunch, which were the easiest ones to do. Just kind of keep that in mind that I don't know if it was just that I used grape juice versus like an orange juice or something, but it definitely took longer to freeze than the other ones.
Interesting.
Yeah. And for the yogurt pops that we did, I got it was like, I think it's called Greek God's yogurt, and it was a honey vanilla flavor. And then mango is my favorite fruit. So I pureed the mango and kind of just swirled that in there. And I loved that one. And then you provided us the recipe for the fudge pops, which were really great. I kind of cheated based on your recommendation and just used pudding. So, and that worked just as well too. And I'm sure that's a favorite with the kids. But as far as the like the frozen wine pops, what's your recommendation for that, or what's your favorite?
Rosé.
Rosé.
Yeah, and Becky, I was just going to jump in and say, can we fast forward to the alcohol ones? It's summertime. Come on, let's get to the good stuff.
So I would not put an entire bottle of rosé in the freezer or on the back porch when it's frigid temps outside. I would recommend pouring it into your mold.
Save some for the popsicles. Oh,
Right.
And one thing you mentioned too when using alcohol in the pops is that you have to have a certain ratio, otherwise they won't set up correctly.
Right. So alcohol slows the freezing process down. Like if you've ever stuck like a whole bottle of, say, vodka in the freezer, you notice it doesn't really freeze. It'll get super, super cold. So when you use alcohol in your popsicles, you want to keep it a 1-to-4 ratio, 1 being your alcohol, 4 being your other liquids.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes longer. Alcohol makes it takes longer to freeze.
Right.
So,
I mean, you could always just make a slushy, which is also good.
Mm-hmm.
So, quick question on this, Becky. As we're looking at alcoholic popsicles, are there certain recipes, and I know you had some in the magazine, but are there certain things that are unique to popsicles, or is it just like, hey, if you like Jack Daniels and Coke, you mix Jack and Coke, and now it's just a popsicle rather than a drink? I mean, is it that simple, or
It's that simple.
It really is.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah, because I dug around. I did a bunch of reading on that because I was like, there's got to be a catch somewhere. And no, you just want to make sure that you have it in proportion, because too much alcohol, as I said, will slow your freezing down.
Mm-hmm.
So you really can take your favorite mixed drink, pour it in a popsicle mold, stick it in the freezer.
Ashley's face is lighting up over here.
I'm just thinking, it's running the gamut here. I'm thinking, it doesn't matter what kind of day you had. You can just keep a bunch of different types of popsicles in your freezer. Some have alcohol, some don't. Some are maybe more on the healthy side with like the yogurt and the fruits and stuff. And some you
Right.
can just stick pudding in them and make them a little bit more, hearty if you had a rough day at work.
You could do a strawberry daiquiri popsicle, which I think covers both healthy and, takes the edge of off a long day.
And just make sure your kids know which is which.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. There should be a adult side and a kid side. Yeah, for sure.
Why is little Johnny acting like that?
Yeah, on
you
the
got-
4th of July, which these would be great for, by the way.
No kidding. You got into the wrong popsicles.
Yep. One last question for you, Becky. What is your favorite flavor of popsicles?
Ooh.
Fudgesicles.
Fudgesicles. I know. They're hard to beat. They are hard to beat.
I included the recipe.
Yep. We, I think my favorite one, well, the favorite of what we made, on the very last page of the article, there is, and they were the margarita ones. And if you look, they're kind of like a creamy color, and it has, there was like flake sea salt on there with some lime, not peels, but,
Rind.
just, thank you, the lime rinds. And they were so good. And it just kind of reminded me of like a frozen key lime pie. It was delicious. So
They are beautiful.
yes. So thank you so much for all of your popsicle suggestions. We had a lot of fun with this article. We made everyone, just every category, like I said, and we just had a great time with it, and they turned out great.
And I'll tell you what, let's put Kira to work. If people make their own and have suggestions, hit us up on the different social media channels for Home Magazine, right?
Yeah.
Home Magazine VA.
Home Magazine VA. You can message us at WLNI Radio to reach us here on the Home Show.
Yeah, let us know which ones you really liked, or if you come up with your own recipe, especially if they have alcohol in them. Send them.
Get rich. Inquiring minds need to know.
That's right.
For an impending trip, maybe,
Yeah.
We're just getting through the summer.
or
There
just
you
getting
go.
through life.
Yes.
4th of July is coming, so. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Becky, and we are going to have you back in a few weeks to talk all about peaches, so we'll look forward to catching up with you then.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yep, you bet. Thank you. We'll be back with more of the Home Show in just a moment.
We're talking about everything and the kitchen sink. Stay tuned to The Home Show, presented by Piedmont Floor Show. There's no place like home. Welcome back to The Home Show, presented by Piedmont Floor Show.
The Home Show is presented by Piedmont Floor Show. Take your next step with them online at PiedmontFloorShow.com, on Facebook at Piedmont Floor Show, or drop by their showroom on Timberlake Road and tune in for your next step each week on The Home Show. We've had a great show today.
Dan Taylor gave me a lot of good tips about what to do when my dog pees on the floor again, which will happen.
Yes.
Because he's just a baby.
Which is to be expected with any sweet little puppy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of the few negatives really kind of offset all the wonderful things about having a puppy. So thanks again to Dan Taylor with Kids Restoration and Cleaning Services. Always a treat having him in studio. And thank you also to Becky Calvert. She is our food writer for Home Magazine. We love having her on and just her creative recipes. And I hope you are all inspired to go out and try some new popsicles.
Rich, I think
Find your
Rich sure
favorite.
is.
Yes. I guess it'll have bourbon in it.
I heard Jack and Coke, and even
Yeah.
I was like, that actually sounds pretty good as like either a slushie or a popsicle.
Maybe like a
That's
Jack and Cherry Coke.
That's a Chip Harvey special,
Yeah.
Jack and Coke. He actually goes Diet Coke, which is kind of interesting. He likes the way it plays off each other a little bit better. I'm just kind of a bourbon on the rocks guy, so the ice would be great, but it would never freeze. So,
So you can't really do that.
I gotta figure something else out.
Yeah.
Maybe bourbon and water.
I was going to say there's going to be like a club soda or something, maybe. I don't know.
We can
Yeah.
we'll figure something out. Or I'll just drink it straight.
Yeah. My favorite was definitely the margarita ones. And I actually made that without the tequila, so you can kind of have the mock popsicles. So anyway,
And real quickly, no show next week. We're gonna we have a best of for the 4th of July. So we hope everybody has a safe and happy 4th of July, and try some of those popsicles or some of the other recipes. And if your dog winds up or there's a stain on the rug, you know who to call. It's been a helpful show.
yeah, very good. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next time.